Hey everyone. Hey Isaac, good to see you again. Um, we're gonna just wait a second here to get this show started. But we're gonna be talking about how to build an effective resume. And we're gonna cover some of the best practices, some of the thought process. Just bringing up my Slack here so I can make sure I can catch any comments that might come in via Leah. There we go. Okay, great. So that's good to go. We are streaming to YouTube and LinkedIn. If you're there, welcome. Welcome to all the Venture Miami Career Fair folks. We hope you're here. We hope you learn a lot. Yeah, we're super excited. And thanks to LinkedIn for partnering on what's going to be this awesome Venture Miami Career Fair in November in Miami at the end of November. Following the week of Thanksgiving, there's gonna be a lot of really cool events, a lot of cool things going on in Miami. If you're in Miami, let us know in the comments. I'm based in Miami, would love to connect. I'll be at the career fair. But yeah, let's kick off this event series with some resume best practices. So different people will approach how to start their job search in different ways. They may, and what I'll tell you is most people start with their resume. I would recommend starting with looking at jobs, but that's for another, that's for, I think for next week's event. But everyone generally starts with their resume, for better or for worse. And so what I want to do is make sure as you're preparing for this career fair that we've got coming up, that your resume is in a really good place and you're ready to submit it to what might be up to 100 companies coming looking to hire at this career fair. So with that, we're going to jump in. We've got a bit of a slideshow that covers a lot of what I feel are some of the best practices. And I will also, let's see if we like that format better. That's a little bigger, I think. It doesn't make a difference. And so what I think are some of the best practices for building an effective resume. All right, so with that, let's dive right in. So also introduction, I'm Dave Fano, founder, CEO at Teal. Have been doing this for about 3 years now. Teal, the platform we make, helps people run an effective job search. It is consumer focused. We don't work for employers. We work for the employees. It's what we do. And that is all of our tooling. Companies have automation and systems, and we want to empower candidates and employees with the same exact kind of tools so that they can be as effective and get more out of their time and land a job they love. So that's what I do. That's what we do. And you've got Leah in the comments helping out, who leads our brand and community here at Teal. So let us know how we can be helpful. So here's a high level what we're going to cover. We're going to talk about, going to give you a little bit of introduction. We're going to do a little bit of myth busting. Let me switch over to this camera. Cool. So we're going to do a little bit of myth busting on resumes. We're going to talk about resume sections. We're going to talk about the concept of a career history and an application resumes. And then we'll wrap up and try to do some Q&A. I'll try to weave in the Q&A that I can. And in this process, I'll do some live demos of how you can do this stuff on your own. So quick intro here. The job search is a sales process. And I know sales is oftentimes like an icky word and like, I don't like sales. Sales is the art and science of helping people find products that are going to make their life better. Right. I think like what we're talking about is like, what people don't like is when you're convincing people to buy things they don't need. But the best sales are when you are making someone aware of something that's incredible and they choose on their own to purchase it. And so if you think about the job search as a sales process and that you are a salesperson, and if you think about the times that you find a product that you really love and you tell everybody about, you need to do that about yourself. And that's weird. That's uncomfortable. That's bragging, but that's really what you got to do. So that's why we say you're a salesperson now and your product is you. There's this product that you think is the best in the world and you want to tell people about it. And that product is you. And that the brochure or the pitch document is your resume. That's what, let me turn my mic here just in case. Your resume, that's the job of your resume, is to present you and to present the best version of you for jobs. That's the job of the resume. The job of the resume is not to show everything you've ever done. It's to show the things that are relevant to get somebody to purchase, to hire you, right? And what I always try to tell people is think about the times you buy. If you go to a website and it's a mess and it's got a whole bunch of stuff on there and they do this and they do that and they do this, are you likely to buy? Probably not. You want to, buy the thing that solves the problems you have. And the document that you use to make that decision in the hiring process is the resume. All right. So we really want to embody this mindset. You are a salesperson and the product is you. All right. Let's at a high level talk about the job search process. And that's why I think about it as a sales process. And it's got these stages that kind of overlap in time. First, you plan. And this is really important. Think about what you want. What are the titles you're going after? What kind of company? The folks that I see struggle and kind of run in place are the ones that aren't clear with what they're after. That doesn't mean you have to be crystal clear, but if you're doing a career pivot, it's more important to get clear first, then go job search. So a lot of the advice I'm going to give now is for someone who knows what they're looking for. There's nothing wrong with not knowing what you're looking for, but invest the time in getting clear before you jump into a job search, because then it just becomes a bit of a vicious cycle of that lack of clarity resulting in sort of a lack of intention and then sort of lack of results. And it just kind of goes down from there. So once you're done with that part and you're clear, then you start looking for jobs. You start sourcing opportunities, right? And you can do that through jobs, through job boards, through networking, through target companies you're excited about. Once you have that, you start applying. You want to submit your application materials. That's where the resume comes in, right? The resume is what is going to move you forward in the process into interviewing. You're going to submit materials, whether it's by email, someone handing it in for you, an online application. The resume is ultimately the thing that they're going to use to decide whether to call you in or not. And then you'll get into the other parts of the process, negotiating and onboarding. All right. So with your resume, patience is your friend. And I love this saying. A friend of mine, Kendall Collins, taught it to me. It's go slow to go fast. I know that in the job search, you want to feel like you're making progress. You want to start to submit resumes. You want to get a lot of resumes out. But if that document is not the correct representation of you and the job you're going after, it's not going to be very effective. And so you're just going to find it's going to take longer. So take a minute at the beginning to prepare, get things right, so then you can go fast. The original name of this presentation was 5-minute resumes, because that's what we really want to do. We want to prepare, build up our career history, and then very quickly we can make like targeted resumes that are super effective. All right, so let's talk about some facts and myths in the resume writing process. So there was a research that was done. I mean, it's got to be a little less than 10 years ago, but probably 7 or 8 years ago, by the Ladders, which is a job search engine or a job board. And they did eye tracking study on recruiters. And what they got in that study was that recruiters, their first skim, not the total ingestion of a resume, is 7.4 seconds. So you see that referenced all the time in all sorts of blog posts and articles. And I think let's focus less on the amount of time, because some people will nitpick it. The point here is the initial sort of screening on whether they want to lean in or not into your resume is very fast. Again, think about the way you use the internet. You go into an article, you skim it real quick if it's interesting, then you take the time and you read it. A book, you look at its cover, you read the summary. If it's good, then you read the book. So it's the same with the resume. Don't focus on the amount of time, 6 seconds, 5 seconds, 10 seconds. It doesn't matter. The point is they are making a very fast decision on whether they will spend the time to read the whole thing. That amount of time is probably still not going to be very high. You're talking about a minute, 2 minutes, but that's plenty of time for them to read. So the point there is you really want to focus on getting their attention quickly. That's really the main takeaway here. All right. ATSs, applicant tracking system, the bots. A lot of that is kind of fear mongering, frankly, from software companies, service providers. Very few of the applicant tracking systems, which are essentially a database of applications, are not that intelligent. They're really to store and sort and make information findable. They're not picking people. People are picking people. But it is important to know that these systems are being used. And you want to do what you can to make sure that you are in sort of compliance or working in a way that these systems can leverage your information. And so when it comes to the resume, you want your resume to be able to be what's called parsed. And that means that the text can be read. And it may seem like, well, of course the text can be read, but there's a lot of things technically that can prevent that from happening. And sometimes the ATSs will try to structure information because resumes are inherently unstructured. We think they're structured because we write it out. We say, hey, this is the work experience section. But one person puts it on the left, one person puts it on the right, one person puts it in two columns. So it's actually not. Our brains as human can structure it, but a computer can't do that. So if you sort of follow some more conventions and norms, the chances of your resume being parsed and structured correctly are much, much higher. And so these things, you want to try to do them if you can. And we'll share these slides. I'm not going to waste your time reading everything that's on here. But most big companies use some form of applicant tracking system. All right, I talked about this already, and I'll talk about it some more. Your resume is your pitch. And you want to think about that document and how people progress down it, and how you continue to hook them, right? I see a lot of people say, well, it has to be one page. If it's less than one page, if it's more than one page, I'm gonna automatically get thrown out. Look, I think, sure, there are times that does happen, but I don't think it's really the most common thing. Think about time, if you've ever walked out of a movie, right? You spent some time in the first part of the movie, and if it stunk, you left. So the resume is just a much more compressed version of that. If the first third of the page is not interesting, the first 20 minutes of the movie relative to a 2-hour thing, I'm going to walk out. I'm not going to read it. So really what I tell people is the first third needs to be really, really good. And that's going to get them to read the whole first page. And if you want them to read a second page, the first page has to be really, really good. Right now, there are some things that if you go beyond, 3, 5, 6 pages, what that's telling me is that you can't edit. You can't condense information down. You're just sort of throwing everything at me. It's less about the page count and more that implies kind of an inability to synthesize. And so what that number is, sure, 3 to 4 pages starts to feel kind of long, right? But it's not a hard number. If all 3 pages are jam-packed with incredible information that are going to make me really pumped to hire you, then it's probably okay. All right, but they're probably going to be sold, a document that's that effective, they're probably sold by the first or second page. All right, so let's move on here. Let me take a quick pause and look at the questions. I'll switch over so I can look at the camera here. Okay, so so there's no auto trashing by the ATS. All right. Technically, yes, but it is the ATS following logic that is explicitly prescribed by a recruiter or a hiring manager. And the majority of the time, it's not from something that it's detecting from your resume. It's from something you filled out in the job application. So as an example, if you need a work visa and that company cannot grant them, and that might be a bad example because there may be some legalities on that. I'm not sure. But there's things like that that will automatically knock you out. Like say a requirement on the job is that you have a master's degree. If on the application you put that you do not have a master's degree, then you're going to get an automatic knockout. These are called knockout questions. If you want more on that, I would highly recommend you follow Amy Miller on LinkedIn. She's got a great YouTube channel called Recruiting in Yoga Pants. It's awesome. She's funny and super, super knowledgeable. And she'll tell you everything about the recruiting process. And that's usually what it is. One that I haven't validated yet could be like an empirical requirement because ATSs and some of the ATS parsers can sort of put together your total years of experience. So if it says must have at least 10 years work experience, it can just compute the dates. And if your math does not add up to that, that's possible, I think. But that would be about it. It's really not about like skills and inferring those things. It's things that are like binary and explicit. And that's why you got to read JDs at the end of the day. If you're applying for jobs that you are not qualified for based on what's in the requirements section, there's going to be a high likelihood that you get automatically knocked out. Now, that doesn't mean you can't land that job. Then maybe just like applying online might not be the right approach. You might want to add a cover letter. You might want to write a professional summary that addresses some of the objections. You kind of preempt the objections, and we can talk about that. But long and short of it, ATSs are not that smart. At the end of the day, they're databases that just store information, and you do want your resume to be parsable. All right, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. All right, I think, yes, this will be, that's Leah answering. Okie dokie, onward. Let's switch back over to this mode and go to this camera. Okay, so resume sections. So let's talk about the anatomy of a resume. And there's a lot of different things you can do. People can get kind of creative with resumes. Really, the resume is not the time to flex graphic skills. It is not the time to break norms. You really want to keep it simple, traditional. Things that deviate from norms just raise eyebrows at the end of the day. So let's talk about the core sections. Obviously, you have your contact information, your professional summary, which is debatable on some people, the work experience, education, and additional. I'm going to dive into each of these one-on-one. All right, or one by one. So contact information. What is the core information you want in your contact information? You want your name, credential or accreditation, PhD, something like that. If you want to put that, you can. Any kind of, certifications. If you have PMP, you can do that. You want your city and state. You not need to include your address. Those days are gone. Not helpful. An email address. You'll hear mixed things about this. Like, use a professional email address. If you've got like your own domain that's kind of funny, you just run the risk that maybe they don't take you serious. So just go get a Gmail address or Outlook or Yahoo or whatever. It's fine. If you have like an AOL email address, it's fine. People joke that that's like, well, it doesn't matter. It's fine. Just be mindful of like bespoke domains if you have your own website, what that might be saying. A phone number, they may want to call you. That's a good thing. And then a live link to your LinkedIn profile. What I would say, though, is if you do a live link, and what I mean by that is that it's clickable and it takes you, fill out the whole profile URL. Don't just do LinkedIn and make that a live link, because if for some reason the link breaks, now they can't get there. So I would always write it out. You can strip off the www, the HTTP. You can even honestly get rid of the linkedin.com if you want. You can just get in. People know what that is. But to be safe, that's kind of what I would do. All right. Next is a professional summary. Sometimes we call it a blurb. I'm a fan. I'll tell you that the majority of the time, I think it's a good thing. I'll tell you sometimes when I don't think you need it. If you are entering the workforce, straight out of school, you probably don't need it, right? It's you lose the benefits. It's not really going to serve its purpose. That's really the big one. And maybe after, if you've only had one job, I'd say the earlier you're in your career, the less value it is. But once you've had more than one job, I think it's an opportunity to talk about your career in aggregate, because everything below is in the context of that position. You have an opportunity with the professional summary to make a pitch for yourself and wrap some of those numbers up together. So if you worked in sales at 2 different companies, well, now you can talk about the total volume of sales. You did $1 million in sales at one company, $3 million in sales at the other. In your professional summary, over the course of my career, I've closed $4 million in sales. So your professional summary allows you to do that. And then some of the things that the person would need to do, sort of work for, compute your total years of experience, things like that, you can just put right there front and center. If the job's got 7 years of experience requirement, you've had 3 jobs, 1 year, 2 year, 4 year, right there, you can just say 7 years of experience. They don't need to do the math. You did it for them. It's like, great, check, next. So that's why I like a professional summary. And I like, instead of heading it with professional summary, I like heading it with the target title, especially if you've not had the title before. Because a lot of times companies want to hire you for what you did, not what you want to do. So it allows you to put the title you're applying for, especially if it's a step up, on the page without misrepresenting that you've had that job before. So I really like it as kind of like a little pitch, maximum 4 lines, really should not be longer than that, whether that's 2, 3 sentences, and a target title. So first person target title, 350 characters max, and get some of those keywords in there. What I mean by keywords are words that are key. They're important to the company. And if you can, get some metrics in there. All right, so that's the summary. We've got a professional summary builder. When we share out this deck, there's a link. In the recording, we'll put a link. It's just a Google sheet that helps you kind of structure it and put together some achievements. So hopefully that can help you. One of these days, we'll turn it into an app. But for now, it's a Google sheet. All right, companies and roles or work experience. Let's talk about the information you need on there, and we can talk about how you organize it, and I'll show you how the Teal resume builder makes it easy for you to do it however you want. But obviously, you need the company. Few things to consider there. If the company was acquired, the company rebranded, you want to put in what I say is like, what's the most familiar, right? Because we can draft off of brand recognition. So if you were at a small company and they got acquired by a big company, put in the big company name. And then you can say previously acquired. You can use parentheses. Parentheses are your friend on this area of the resume. Next is the position you had. This is incredibly important to anyone looking at it because they want to see that you've had the position they're hiring for. What happens here is sometimes companies get cute with their job titles, and they're weird and foreign and not that common. Not foreign, I mean, like it's like not normal or not commonly seen. So what you could do is you could put in the normative version. I saw someone who was director of first impressions, and they were a receptionist. And that's cool. That's awesome that that company came up with an interesting title. But in terms of trying to get hired and someone understanding what that means, not that helpful. So you could either put the more normative title and then in parentheses what the company called it, or vice versa. But I would recommend doing that if they used a title that wasn't that common. Another version is if you were sort of put in a role that was like functionally more senior than what would typically have been understood. So you were really acting as a manager, you had direct reports, but manager wasn't in your title. Again, I would feel comfortable putting something in parentheses there, and then in your achievements, kind of show that you had those responsibilities. All right, next is time at the company. Really important. Everyone wants to see that. They want to see that you're not job hoppy. Whether that matters or not, it's a different discussion, but kind of companies want to see that you stick around. The other thing is they want to see that you're not trying to hide something. They're going to assume worst intent. So I would always recommend putting the month and year. If you put in, so 2017 to 2018, people are going to assume you were there from December 2017 to January of 2018. They're just going to assume the worst. So just be honest. I said honesty is the best policy. If they don't like you for that reason, well, then someone else will, right? And if you really start this to be an issue, then you can address it in other ways, and there's other tactics. But I would generally go with the most straightforward version of the information. All right, and then location. You can put location at each position at the company. I think it matters a little bit less, especially if you're applying to a remote role, but some people like to see it. And it's kind of convention. Achievements, right? I intentionally don't call them bullets because bullets don't have an intent. They're achievements, and that's what they should be. They should be representation of things you've achieved and gives me a sense of what it's like to work with you. And you want to have those under each position generally, and you want to show your career progression. I'll talk about ordering and sorting in a little bit, but you want these to be impactful and use the keywords that the company is looking for, and you want to show metrics and the impact you've had on a company. And I'd say generally my rule of thumb on a application resume is like really shouldn't be more than 15 or 20 of those, right? Because you want, I'd go for quality, not quantity when it comes to achievements. All right, so achievements prove that you have done this work and that you have the abilities that the job requires. Because if it was just listing a bunch of skills, you could just toss them in a comma separated list of words. But people want to see that you actually use them in action. So use this technology to achieve this. And so achievements, when structured that way, really help a person understand and envision you using those abilities at their company. So let's not do this, which is just kind of a description. Worked with tech team to increase website traffic. So what? That's just descriptive of what you did. I don't know if it went well. I don't know if you did it fast. Sure. Okay. You were a part of it. But what if we turn that into something a little more impactful? We don't want to just list out our responsibilities. We want to show metrics. We want to show the results. We want to show the impact that we had at that company. So how about this? Grew engagement by 200%, which led to doubling revenue in 3 months. And then you could even add by relaunching the company website. You put the how at the end, but honestly, it doesn't even matter here, right? That's kind of implied in the position. And it's like, okay, I want someone who can grow revenue by 200% in 3 months and who's had that experience before. That's awesome. That's what I want. That's the pain at the company right now. All right. So this is the kind of simple formula. Sorry, just seeing some of the comments that are coming in. This is the formula. You want the success verb or the impact, the thing that you impacted, and the metric and the outcome. All right. And you can sometimes rearrange these on kind of what works better for you. For initially writing them, I think what and how you did it, and then what the impact was. And then after you write it, you flip it. So here's that broken down. What was the success verb? What was the impact? I grew. What was the thing that I grew at the company? The engagement, which, it might be retention. This has long-term value to a company. The metric, I grew it by 200%. And then what was the outcome? Doubling revenue in 3 months. You could leave off the 3 months. I would say like this is the A+ version. Just say led to doubling revenue would also be good. We call this a time-based statement. It takes a little more work. It's a little more detail you need to have. I'd say, again, that's like taking it over the top and like really, really good, not necessary. And also, if you don't have this number, right, you don't have to have all of it. You just want to show impact. You could say grew engagement by redesigning our website, which led to doubling revenue in 3 months. Again, this one is kind of checking all the boxes, but you can do part of it. But it's still way better than just saying, yeah, redesign the website. All right, so the purpose is to include metrics to build proof. How are we proving that we did this? And we have just kind of this inherent belief in numbers, and that if we quantified it, it's real. It's kind of just something we're somewhat susceptible to, but let's use that to our advantage. Including numbers is going to help them stand out from in the sea of text. Our eyes are going to go straight there, and it's going to make it more believable. I'm not saying to lie. I'm not saying to fake numbers. But if you have the numbers, it shows that you can also speak about your impact in an empirical way. So here's some examples, right? If you planned events, so organized a sold-out charity event for 300 people and raised $500,000. Right. So if you were applying to a nonprofit, or if you were going from like nonprofit to a venture capital firm, and part of your job is going to be helping raise funds, we'll show that you've done that. Right. Here's some other examples on email. I'm not going to read all these, but take a second to read them. Right. You're showing the impact, the task you did, and the impact you had as a result of taking those actions. We've got a cool little tool. It's called the Achievement Builder. It's almost like Mad Libs for your resume. I'll show it to you live in just a bit, but it really helps you structure how these go together. All right, so here's some other tricks for writing an achievement, because you can kind of get stuck sometimes. So ask yourself, did you make the company money? Did you save the company money? Did you train people? How did you make them more efficient? Use some of these prompts. Trick 2, look at job descriptions. Look at the responsibilities or the requirements section, and just add a question mark at the back of each line. Take the exact same line and just in your mind, turn it into a question. Experience managing an annual P&L marketing budget versus experience managing an annual P&L budget. Like, oh yeah, I did that. You could, if you really want to, you can put did you, do you in the front to really help you process it as a question. And now just answer that question. Say, yes, I did. This is how I did it. And here's the proof that I did it. And then leverage language, right? Be thoughtful about what tells the best story. Growing a user base from 500 to 1,000, that might not be that interesting in a B2C company that really needs to be getting tens of thousands. You could just say grew it by 100% or 2x. Right? These are ways to say the same thing in a more impressive way. So think about that and the narrative and how you are selling. At the end of this is a marketing document. You're not being disingenuous. You are presenting your best self, and you have to use all the tools at your disposal. Another trick is look at other people's profiles. Go to LinkedIn, see folks with the same exact title, and go read their profile and see how they describe their achievements and see if you did similar things. Obviously, the numbers would be different, but that might give you some ideas on how you could structure some achievements. Okay, next section, education. Really not much here. Keep it super simple. Main difference is if you're coming fresh out of school, these might be a little more filled out. You might want to put some of your focus there. If you don't have as much work experience, you kind of want to bolster your presentation a little bit. But if you've had 2 or more jobs, just keep it real simple. Show what you've had as education. Don't overthink it. Keep it at the bottom of the resume. And then there's an additional information section. I like a list of comma-separated skills. Oftentimes when recruiters are sort of filtering down a whole list of resumes, they will oftentimes search for particular words. And from my discussions and research, they're using hard skills. Do you know a particular software? Do you know a particular framework? They're searching to see if that's on your resume. And if it's on there, it'll come up on the list. Now, I'm not saying put it in 15 times. Some not so good ATSs do use frequency as their sorting algorithm, because even if it returns 20 applicants, it still has to decide who to put number 1, who to put number 2. Think about when you search Google. When you search Google, you're getting millions of results, but it's using an algorithm to decide what's on page 1, right? And so some ATSs from people I've talked to in the field do use frequency, but do not use that as a reason to add more of those keywords, right? There's really not that many applicants. It's not going to make that much of a difference. I think having it once, twice, 3 times max, depending if it's a really important word, use it in context. Don't just keyword stuff. But, if it's something that you've done a lot of and it's important to the position, include it. It's going to have way more value in the work experience than here, right? Again, I like them. I sort of skim it when I'm hiring, but if it's only here, it's probably not going to get that much value. I'm going to want to see it in your work experience. And some additional sections that you'll occasionally see on resumes. Certifications and licenses, those are great, especially if you're career pivoting or if they're required, sometimes a PMP certification if you're a project manager. Some kind of training and continuing education might be helpful. Special awards, those could be good. If you are in a field that values publications, those could be helpful. Charity or volunteer work, those are great oftentimes for early in your career to show extracurriculars. Projects, some jobs like architects, graphic designers might benefit from having a project section where you could show notable clients. And then if you're career pivoting, personal projects could be really cool. You volunteered to build an app. If you're becoming a software engineer, you built an app for a nonprofit, and that's a personal project. So those are some sections that you could use to add into your resume. All right, let's take a quick pause for questions. Let's do a time check. All right, 5:35. Let's see here. We've got, okay. Okay, so, all right, someone asked, what if what I didn't have metrics, right? And this comes up every time. It wasn't measurable. The company didn't share the metrics with me. Ultimately, the companies run on numbers, right? Or organizations run on numbers. At the very basic, it's dollars and cents. So at its core, was the activity you were doing helping make money or save money or spend less money? And you try to ladder back from that. So here's one: providing a positive candidate experience through Calendly, scheduling, transparency, and updates. So if you're aware of what it was like before, you could make a qualitative statement, which is like bettering our hiring process. Another version of that I think could be fine as approximation, you could say increasing the quality of our hiring process by 30%. What does that mean? You could talk about it in the interview, but that might ask them to ask a question. And you can say, well, we occasionally did surveys, we got feedback, and people said, and I know how kind of tough it was before. And so that's my rough estimation on how much our process got better. We got more efficient, so you can do things like that. Your comfort level with attaching numbers to something like that, that's a little more amorphous, let's call it. But that's what you could do. I would try to find ways to attach, did you, in this case, did you speed up the hiring process? Did you reduce the number of interviews? Did you help make it require less people in the process, right? Using Calendly, what you did here, you made it more efficient. So sure, it was a positive candidate experience. That's wonderful, but you probably saved time, even your own time. You were probably able to source more candidates. You were probably able to interview more people as a result. So I increased my interviewing throughput by 20% by creating automations in the hiring process, right? Those are things you could do through that. All right. So, hey, there's Tom. Hey, Tom. Okay. Okay, cool. That was Isaac's question. All right, let's get back to it. So resume types. The first one's really not a resume type, but I encourage folks to create what we call like a career history document. I'm going to show you the Teal resume builder that has a built-in career history. But the idea here is that you create an exhaustive document that's got everything you've ever done. And the way I think about it is that one document is for creation and the other document is for curation. And a lot of times when we're writing our resumes, we need to create and curate at the same exact time. And that's very, very hard. And we're wordsmithing. And the truth is, it's a false objective. It's not a helpful objective because you should curate relative to a job description, not to an occupation, right? To say product manager and to write a resume that's the perfect product manager resume, it's a fool's errand, as they say, because every company's version of product manager is slightly different versus some prototypical perfect version of what a product manager is. And putting that pressure on yourself for a resume, this thing that needs to be perfect, that needs to address 100 possible different requirements, is just not realistic. So that's why we really subscribe to the idea of a career history and then application resumes. All right, so your career history is where you store it all. Focus on quantity, not quality. All right, your career history should have everything you've ever done, even if it's a slight derivation of or variation on an achievement. You're using different words. At this company, they called it members. At this company, they called it users. That's okay. You can put it all on your career history. You don't need to cull and curate on the career history. And so I'll show you this tool in just a minute and all the ways that you can make resumes from it. So I'm not going to spend too much time there. And then you have a resume. A resume is a response to a job description. It is what you use for an application. And applications are to a job, not to an occupation. Again, every company is different. So a job is an occupation plus a company equals a job, right? Product manager at Google, that's the job. Just product manager, that's too broad. That means too many different things to too many different companies. And so you want to create application resumes. The extreme would be an application per job description. That's tough. That takes a lot of time. Impact effort ratio may not be there. So you may want to say product manager for startups resume, product manager at enterprise software company, right? They have enough commonalities that you can get away with what Maddie Machado, if you don't follow her, she's great, calls profile resumes. That could be a great middle ground. But what I see a lot of people do is they want to create this document that's got a lot of a little. It wants to show you all the things I'm capable of. In one job, I did video editing, and that might be helpful for making, product demos, but that's not in the JD. And that's just not how that works. So what you really want to show is a reduced version of you that's a bullseye. Right? And what this diagram is showing, it's that same volume of color just spread out over the whole thing versus concentrated in the middle. You want to give them a bullseye. They've given you the target. It's the job description. Your resume needs to be a bullseye for that job description. All right, so career history is for you to use everything you've ever done, put it all in one place. And then the applications are what you use. And you'll see, right? We used to call it the master resume. We don't call it that anymore. Generally, that language is sort of gone from our vernacular, but it was called that for a little while. So if you see that ever addressed in the market or in a Google article, that refers to what we call the career history. It's the exhaustive thing of everything you've ever done. So now let's talk about application resumes layout. And that's why I say this top third is super important. It's your pitch. If they don't like the top third, they're not going to read the whole first page. If they don't like the whole first page, they're not going to read the second page. So think of it in those ways. And the other thing is the way recruiters or the way resumes are read is in this F or E pattern. They usually they look at the top, the contact, and then they go down the spine and they occasionally go in, right? And so when you look at a resume, you can see it. This is always like, okay, there's like a boldness here, boldness with the dates. And then if they like that, then they dive into the achievements. So they call it reading resumes in an F or E pattern. It's also why you really shouldn't deviate from kind of standard resume templates. All right, so some best practices, skimmable to get them hooked. That doesn't mean they're going to make their decision, but they are going to decide within 5 to 10 seconds whether they want to read the resume. They're not screening you in or out. I mean, it is, because if they say they don't want to read it, then you're out. So it is really important. So you want to get them hooked and then have the good stuff that gets them to decide to call you in for an interview. Then come keywords. Let's get those words that matter, words that are key to get there, to the company. Single column, not a fan of dual column, generally breaks the parsability on ATSs. Keywords, just to make sure you didn't sleep on it, and keep it simple to read, simple fonts. And just in case it wasn't clear, keywords. Keywords are very, very important. Again, resumes are skimmed. People are looking for particular words. They find them. So let's get those keywords in there. All right. So how do we get these keywords that are super important? They're in the JD, right? The job description has them. And there's a few different ways we can discern them. But here's a version of doing it by hand. And I promise I've got some automation coming that's going to make a lot of these things easier. But I think it's really important to understand the concepts before we dive into the tools. So here's an example of a job description, right? And so let's look for some indicators. We call these emphasis words, right? When they're using words like experience, capability, skill, track record of, all right, the company's already telling me something. These are things that matter to them. And there's only so many ways for them to say you must have, but they're putting it in there. They're using all the synonyms of it. So next, let's look at the skills and talents or knowledge that are there, right? So consumer growth marketing, I call that knowledge. That's not really a skill. That means you've had exposure to consumer growth. Managing an annual P&L, you know how to budget. Analytics. Now, a marketing tech stack, that's more knowledge, right? That's more broad. That means you've had experience with that. You understand how these various systems come together, right? And so here's the company telling me these things that matter, right? And then even more emphasis with words like excellent, strong. That would mean to me that these bullets matter more. So those are like super keywords. They're all important words, but I need to show that I've got core online and offline channel experience. I need to show that I've done project management. And I need to show that I've done communication and presentation skills, right? Those things are being called out as important. All right, so keywords. Let's talk about some automation and how you can get that. All right, so let's see here. Let's dive over to some tools. So starting with keywords, I like to say I use the job descriptions first. And we talked a lot about job descriptions. So let's go right there. Let's go to, since everyone on here probably knows LinkedIn, I'm going to show you a different job board. I'm going to show you Google. And Tina, who is our Teal member, Tina Miller, is looking for a, let me switch my camera over that one, is looking for a product marketing jobs. We'll use Denver because there's some cool things about doing research. Actually, you know what? Let's do Miami. Miami, Florida. All right. And so you get this cool jobs block. You click on the blue bar. Now you get this really cool like job search engine that Google has. That there's kind of not like there's not an easy way to get to this. But if you type the job, then you get this really amazing job search engine that searches all the job boards and all sorts of really cool stuff. So let's see here. There's a marketing director position, and we've got lots of good information, right? We can start to look at this. Okay, trade shows matter, right? So if you don't have event marketing experience and having done events and expos, you probably don't apply to this job. But if you do apply to this job and you do have that experience, you want to make sure it's on your resume. So if you install the Teal Chrome extension, which we can link out to in some follow-ups, or if you sign up for Teal, it's free. It'll guide you through it. You just click this little duck here, and it's going to automatically detect the top 5 keywords for this particular job. And there you go, trade shows, right? That's an important term. So let's go ahead and save that job. And let's go over to our job tracker. I just clicked view jobs. So here you go. We already codify a lot of those words for you. So if you want to see like just the emphasis words, here's saying experience, strong, right? That stuff's there. Didn't take all of it. So if this happens, I'll show troubleshooting live. They may have changed their interface. Let's get all this stuff. Oh, they codified it differently. Okay, no, it is. So we use the original JD, not that codified version. So let me just go ahead and copy all this just in case. Command C. Save changes. So similar in there, we just got it all now. It was all just truncated. So we get to see where those things are called out. Strong written communication, must be organized and detail oriented. All right, those are things that are important. And so now let's see how we would go about building a resume. We can also see other things like what are the hard skills that are called out, what are the soft skills, and then we've got some non-categorized skills. So the Teal job tracker does that. It gives you the top 5 for free. Teal Plus gives you all of the skills, which is a premium feature. But if anyone needs any help with that, just let me know. We can figure things out. All right, so now this job is saved. So I want to now head over to our resume builder. All right, and this is going to really make things easy. We're going to start a new resume. And over on your left, you have what we call the career history, or the work. We call it work history. We're going to rename it. It's also here, which is just the work history. They're connected. I would say just go to the resume builder. And there's a few different ways you can populate this, right? 'Cause it's kind of a drag to fill this all out by hand. You can just import it. You can choose to append it to your existing work history, or you can overwrite it. Let's just go ahead and overwrite it here. I'm going to import Tina Miller's LinkedIn profile. Let's go ahead and overwrite that. And now we've got a lot to work with. We've got all of Tina's achievements. And for anyone that asks, how can you get that resume template? It's actually built into the Teal resume builder. It's kind of what it looks like. And in the next potentially 24 hours, there'll be 2 new resume templates that will be added, which will be pretty cool. So now you've got this career history on the left, and you can see you can be exhaustive here. You can add more and more things. We can, add a professional summary or a target title, and we want a actually, let me cancel that. What I want to do is add my target title, which is that important channeling I was talking about. So save that. And now that adds it to the resume. We'll go ahead and turn on our about section. That adds it to the resume. Contact info didn't come over. So we can just fill that out real quick. That's all because I've done it before. So save those. So now that gets added. And so you can continue to add more and more. All right. So if we run through that same similar exercise, if we were to just look at a JD and say, what are the requirements? This is the one that had the trade show. So say Tina had done that while she was the senior marketing manager at WeWork. Let's go ahead and add that achievement. So you've got some suggestions here on how to do it. You've got examples of other ones you could use. You can use the prompts, or you can use the assistant. All right. So what did we do? We let's say we improved sales conversion by, let's let's say 35% in 6 months by launching a trade show marketing. Right, built it out here and saved it. And so now that's on my career history. And so I may not need that for every job. Um, but I know for that job, I'm going to have it. And for the jobs I don't need it, I'll just turn it off. And that's it. And so that's the benefit of having an exhaustive career history instead of saying this is this perfect 2-page, 1-page document and I don't edit it. Now you can just edit it, turn it on and off real quick and easy. All this functionality is free. So free forever. And that's how you could do that. Now, if you want to go ahead and start to make that resume a little better, you can use the resume analysis. So it's saying our professional summary is kind of long. Just trying to keep it a little shorter. So you know what? Let's go ahead and just copy this one. Command C. I'll add a new one, paste it, because I want to keep that original long one just in case I want to ignore that rule. And say, I don't need this little personal touch. That's not accurate anymore. I'm at 416. I'll just go ahead and get rid of that for now. Save that. So now I've satisfied that constraint. Resume is a little better. So you can decide, if this resume, this achievement, let's see, show me this achievement. Yeah, that one's kind of a short one. So I'm just not even going to actually include it. Turn that off. So now I'm short achievements. So fixing one thing broke another, but you can see how that works. You've got that. So that's going to guide you through a lot of this advice that we have. But the fun stuff is now actually comparing this resume to a particular job. All right. So this job we just bookmarked was at, I want to use that one, was at Betty Dane Creations. And it has analyzed all the keywords in the job description and in my resume, and it's compared them. And there's other tools that do this, so I don't want this to feel like a pitch just for Teal. There's a great tool called Job Scan. You get 5, I think 1 scan for free. There's another one called Skill Syncer. There's one called Resume Worded. Those are all really great. They tend to separate the analysis from the creation. We've kind of integrated those two. But now here you can see the hard skills, soft skills, and these are in what we call the high priority words versus the every other word. What high priority to us means it's either in the requirement section of the JD. Oh, we got that cable in the way there. Sorry about that. Or it shows up on the job description more than twice or more. So those are the high priority. We would recommend you address those first. And this software is new. We're doing some cool things with it. So like, here's an example. We did add trade shows, but maybe I didn't word it exactly as it wanted it. So let's see. Right. I said trade show marketing. So that's a question it's a thing for myself to fix in our platform. Right. Yeah. It wants trade shows. This is trade show. So launching a trade. I'm not sure I'd recommend doing that, but just to show you how it works. So now that's been satisfied. If I check it, it can show me where I used it. Right. So those things, again, just you don't have to subscribe to everything technology says. If you feel like you're addressing it, a human being will do it. Our technology will get better, but it's really there to help you sort of figure those things out. Now, the other cool thing is if there are terms that are in your career history, you already wrote it, but you just don't have it turned on. Let's see if Tina has any here. Not finding any. All right, so now we can start to address these one by one. So product development is important for this job. Let's assume that actually budgeting is one that is important for this job, and we need to include that. So let's add an achievement. So we'll do that as this marketing director. We will use the assistant. So let's say we'll reduced expenses %. We can leave off the time part. by developing you gotta spell it right, new editing process. Save that. That's on the resume now. Go back over to our matching mode. Should automatically stay on. So let's see if we got budgeting now. Yep, so now budgeting is satisfied. I can see where I wrote it. There it is. And what you can see is if I do turn it off, now you get a little blue exclamation, because that means you have it in your career history. You just don't have it turned on. So show me where it is. Let's go ahead and turn that on. And now I satisfy that. So again, that shows why building out a robust career history will really help you, because it's just all there. Now it just becomes about turning things on and off. And if the thing on the left was just a gigantic Google Doc or a Word doc, that would work just the same, because then you can just delete the things that don't need to be there. You can do this manually. You don't need a tool for it. This tool just makes it a lot easier. I do need to say that the matching is also a Teal Plus feature. It gives you the top 5 skills by default. But all of the turning on and off, all that stuff is entirely free. So you can do that. And then now, lastly, let's talk about how we format this resume. So, we've got our defaults that we recommend. Things are, the order is our recommended default order. We do company first and then position. So those are all our recommendations by default. But some of these things, honestly, are 6 one way, half dozen the other. And if you really want to do that, instead of needing to copy paste stuff and get a whole new template, they're just settings. So say you really like the dates on the right. That's just what's normal to you. No problem. Get the dates on the right. If you really like to group it by position first, then company, no problem. Switch it over to position first, and then company will be below it, right? If you want to show the date ranges at the company level and the position level, actually, you know what? This is like a funky combination that I think doesn't work. So let's go back to company and let's do both. I want to show my time at the whole company and my time at each position. I think that's a bit extra. I'd prefer just company because it maximizes tenure. That's my opinion, but I don't think that's gonna, cost you an opportunity. And then a couple small little aesthetic things, like if you do want to introduce just like a dash of color, you can. There's a different template. You just swap it. All the data stays the same. This one's very subtly different. The sections are smaller and the professional summary is a little more highlighted. And like I said, in the next 24 to 48 hours, there's going to be 2 new templates on here, which will be cool. And if you want a little bit more of like a conventional look, you can switch over to a serif font instead of a sans serif font, which might be a little more modern. All right. So those are some tips and tricks. Oh, lastly, if you're coming directly out of school, maybe something like education should go first and then go back over to here and let's turn off the target title and the professional experience. All right. Target title might be helpful, maybe not the professional experience, but now you've got your education first. And we've got some new things coming where you can add bullets to the education and put a little bit more text there. But those are things you can do quickly in the formatting mode. You can just reorganize things. If you do want to start off with your skills, you can. You just sort of come over here and rearrange it quick and easy. All right, so it's a purpose-built tool to build awesome resumes with a lot of embedded best practices. So give it a shot. It's totally free. Again, not totally free. There's a couple of these like more enhanced features that are Teal Plus. It's $9 a week. So try to keep it super reasonable. But if you can't afford it, just send me an email. We'll try to get it sorted out to help you out. All right. So, that was quick run through there. Let me stop my screen share and let me answer questions. All right. Someone asked, does a single versus multiple column layout matter? Yeah. The 2 column for resumes to be done with 2 column, typically what that means is that there's tables being used, like in a Word or Google Docs, you're adding a table to be able to do that because the text doesn't naturally do that. And tables tend to create problems for resume parsers. So you run the risk of it not parsing as well. It's not the end of the world. I generally recommend against it. I think just stick to 1 column if you can. If it really matters to you, go for it, but would generally advise against it. It just also makes the reading much easier. It's just like, okay, cool. Top down, I don't need to jump over here, jump over here. It's just easier on the reader. And generally recruiters that I've talked to have said they prefer a 1-column resume. But again, I don't think you're going to get knocked out of the process for that reason. All right. So yes, what Kelly said on LinkedIn, everyone get ready for the Venture Miami Tech Hiring Fair. It's going to be awesome. Well, thanks everyone. Actually, someone just said, Leah just said, look, I've seen mixed advice on this, where to apply, whether to apply directly on a company's website, whether to apply through a job board. I just like to remove intermediary layers, right? That's my preference. So if I can go straight to the source, it just removes less opportunities for chance. A lot of times LinkedIn will automatically load it into the ATS for the company. So it might be fine, but it might not. They may not have implemented the integration. So my preference is to go straight to the company and apply. You'll hear people say that doesn't matter. Another one is the easy apply. People say, hey, I hire people off easy apply all the time. So it could be fine. My preference is I don't like it. I just feel like when things are too easy, then a lot of people are using the easy apply. So there's just like a much higher volume. And if there's an opportunity for me to tailor it a little, make a better case, and if it's just kind of like auto-populating my LinkedIn profile, I feel like I might be missing a chance. It's probably fine. If you're short on time, absolutely take advantage of these things. So really constantly the way I approach these things is effort to impact ratio. If I don't have the time to make the effort, progress is better than nothing. So do it. But if you have the time and there's certain jobs that you want to just give it a little bit extra effort and energy, then maybe try to go direct. But I don't think it's going to necessarily make or break. But it also really depends on the companies and even the person. Some recruiters might be checking all the channels. They might check LinkedIn, Indeed, the ATS of the company, and others might just check one place once a week. So there really is no right answer to any of these questions. It depends. And, it really varies per company. So I like, certain things that I can control that I think enable me to give me a better chance. I'll do them. Again, assuming you have the time, right? So effort to impact ratio, think about that, because volume and momentum is more important than everything, I would say, in the job search. So thanks everyone for joining. Hopefully you found that helpful. We will be posting a recording of this. I hope to meet some of you at the Venture Miami Career Fair, but best of luck with your job searches and happy resume making. All right. See y'all soon.